Greetings, listeners. You're tuning in to Sinister Soup, an audio imprint of Grendel Press for lovers of everything dark and delicious. I'm your host, Clay Vermolum. We hope you enjoy today's story, and remember to stay tuned afterwards for a featured interview with the author. See you on the other side. Storyeater, Spin a Yarn of Chaos by Xan van Rooyen. Tonight I find myself in the presence of a god. We sit with the fire pit and the weight of their story between us, their face curdled by shadow. My body aches despite the warmth, every joint pulsing with splintered wood pain, the toll of my travels etched in skin and bone. I haven't fed in days. My last meal the minor transgressions of a lowly sprite. Hardly a feast, but this god carries a heavy load, and my insides quicken at the promise of satiety, however temporary. Thus is my penance. You understand the bargain? My voice is steady. My fingers tremble. I know what you are. Their gaze flicks to the scars on my arms where other tales have gnawed through flesh to rewrite my sinews. Are you ready? I brace myself. This is what I came for, what I begged of them, what I need as I trudge the endless road towards redemption. If you're willing, then I will need your blood. I offer them my blade. The god sneers at the proffered knife and raise their hand to the shadows instead. A quick tightening of their eyes, a twitch of their jaw, and they remove their hand from the rumbling darkness. Their palm bears a tattered crescent, where fangs have gouged a crooked grin. Sufficient. I nod and catch at the beads dripping from their skin, watch them splash, then sink into the scar tissue filigree mapping my forearms. This is how it begins. A vow for truth and completion, I say. Our contract blood signed, they say, with a wry smile and pitiless eyes. Then you may start. I brace for the impending onslaught. May I? Apologies. I forgot this is no vagabond demon, nor some exiled angel searching for salvation, and I forgot I was human once. Though now I'm scraped up, road smear remnants stretched to fit this body, thinned and thinning as I try to make amends. I'm ready. The god cuts me a curious glance as I squirm against the hard earth, molding my shoulder blades to the rock behind me. It retains some heat from the day's baking and blocks the wind screaming through the woods that pin us against the cliff. The wind quietens as they inhale, shadows grazing their lips with tentative fingers before they spit the first words. The enmity of my siblings often drove me from Pohjola into the deeper darkness of our grandparents' realm. The god catches a quick spark coughed up by the fire. It hovers above their palm, the atoms coming apart with the subtle tremor of their long fingers. Siblings' spite and the allure of taunting an undead swan. The god continues. The story is slow unraveling. I grasp the loose threads and spool it inwards. Darkness coats Tuanella like honey fresh squeezed from the hive. Loss, sorrow, absence. The sweet odors you'd expect of the dead. But also relief, a more subtle perfume. There the constant night is illuminated only by flickering wisps according to my grandmother's whim. Liekiet. The word scrapes raw over my road-rhymed lips. You know them. Their eyes catch the flames. But you cannot know how the glow of murdered souls turns the snows silver and putrescent. A smile slices their face, and I wince. To some, it might seem as exquisite as the blade pressed to a throbbing throat. We never saw it that way. To us, it was simply our playground, littered with bones. Oh no, My grandparents keep a tidy house. I mutter apologies, but they shush me with a raised finger. To get into Tuanella, even we have to cross the river. Rarely a problem, unless our aunt's dory was too full of ghosts. I say we, although I was ever alone, ostracized, ignored. They turn to the side. Of course it was like that. They berate the shadows congealed beyond the reach of the firelight. You remember their taunts, their fists in disgust. The shadows ripple. The god sighs and runs a hand through their hair. The strands glint, iridescent as a magpie wing. Sometimes Rupee, number 6, accompanied me. He tolerated my existence better than the rest, seemed to enjoy tormenting my grandmother's pet as much as I. 10 of us. They answer the question still booming in my mind. And no, we are all ourselves sharing only the blood of our mother and breath of our father. I had no siblings, couldn't imagine sharing a legacy with 9, though the only legacy I have is error and dust. We don't even look all that much alike. The shadows ebb and flow, sticky fronds like grappling fingers snapping at their shoulder, elbow, knee. Well, that is your opinion. The god speaks to the shadows. You are the 9th, they say. The abomination. They stroke the ink spills spreading across their lap. The swan of Tuanella has gaping sockets with emptiness for eyes, a beak gore-stained and offal dripping, and marimba-jangled feathers of shredded human skin. They flick their fingers, and god blood mingles with flame. The monstrosity coalesces, seethes, cold magic dancing, it takes form, the undead bird limned in firelight. When I hold my breath, I hear the music plucked from the chimes of the swan's pinions, and its empty eyes peer back at me from between the embers. Its webbed feet are tipped with obsidian claws, its body peppered with the skulls of damned drowned in the churning river. It's the realm of the dead. If you want harps and ambrosia, you should have begged another traveler for their tale. My skin blisters beneath their glare. I bite back my cry of pain. This is what I wanted, to suffer for the suffering I inflicted. I needed this, the fulfillment of agony. The game we played was a simple one, the god continues. The first to pluck a skull from the swan claimed victory. When played together, we'd goad the beast to frenzy. Whoever so much as wet a toe in the river had to forfeit. The prize was the skull, of course, and the sense of triumph, the joy of provoking savagery from the bird, of seeing your sibling flail bloody in the currents. Were you ever... I coughed the wariness from my lungs and washed grit from my teeth with a last swig of water. Afraid, like I am now, that the weight of the god's tail might be too much to bear, that I will split my skin and leave, bleeding out ribbons of evil. Why would we be afraid? The god gives a crowcock of their head. We couldn't die, and whatever injuries we received would heal. Payaza, the 5th, even lost an eye once. They turned to the shadows. Remember that? I laughed because he deserved it, clumsy and careless. They twirl their fingers, and I watch the swan conjured of flame fall like a scythe upon a figure wrought of ash, hear the wet crush of a skewered eyeball. But that day, the god continues in a voice as crisp as spring snow, as rich as rain-tilled soil. They haven't told me their name yet, and I dare not ask. The souls were unsettled. The restless dead howled as they roamed, their shrieks scouring the frozen tundra. The river was a froth of iron and rot, which kept our aunt occupied, leaving Rupee and I free to play. Another smile, and I touch my beard's scruffed cheek, fingers damp where the god's gaze cut me. I need this. I asked for this. I must endure. The swan was more agitated than usual, slashing at the souls trying so desperately to crawl back to life. Hopeless, pointless, but most don't know they're dead. Not yet. Only that they're drowning in boiling blood. The copper on my tongue is only from thirst, I assure myself, and a day spent chewing dust, searching, hunting, pulled towards the next story, trapped in a need of release. Now I have my quarry. I must be patient. I bet my brother I would take a skull from the swan's crown, a wreath of smaller craniums. I flinch. Infants die too, they say, each syllable frosted with the north wind's chill. Oh, I know. I know the fragility of infant necks and sponge-soft heads. Rupee said it was too dangerous, said it would be enough to snatch a bone from the bird's tail given the frenzy. They turned again to the shadows now gathered at their ankles and trickling over their toes. A war? A plague? Could have been one of us. I didn't note the dealing of my siblings. The shadows responded with a sibilant sigh. It was a more challenging game, the god continues, and more rewarding. We began, or rather I did. Instead of trying to provoke the swan, Rupee did his best to distract it, aiding rather than sabotaging my efforts. Silence. The god's exhalations string the night with constellations that snap and stretch as they rise through the branches and dust a shimmer across the leaves, rising to spangle the clouds before disappearing. But that's not how the game worked, the god says. Carefully, I feed another log to the devouring flames. It wasn't supposed to be an opportunity for kindness or collaboration. It was meant to be a battle. We were made for suffering. When not inflicting disaster upon the human world, we had to find entertainment elsewhere. To hone our skills, to anticipate the destiny for which we'd been whittled. The shadow clawed the god's chest, leaving welts on the pale skin visible through the shredded fabric. Mother encouraged us. Father didn't care. Does the wind feel guilt for uprooting trees in a storm? I frown, huddled deeper in my cloak as the cold sinks its teeth into my spine, as the question lodges like an arrow between my ribs. My mother sculpted us from her gore. My father... They peer upwards as the wind rattles the branches and tousles my hair. Only my sister mattered. Never allowed to bleed in case Mother's worst fears were made manifest. They scoop darkness from their lap and shake it from their palms. No, that's exactly how it was. I look away, but catch the glancing blow of the god's gaze, another gash opening on my temple. What I did was worse than anything I have been made to feel on the road. I deserve this. Her name is Panayainen, and her veins writhed with terror, the god continues. Nightmare. But they never called her abomination, not even when Mother proved susceptible. I hope my darling sister revises the schematics for future generations. Slowly, the splattered shadows creep forward. I sift saliva and courage through my teeth. You can procreate. Is it odd the spawn of death may breed? They nudge a pebble, foot bare, toes long and capped with jagged nails. Not that I ever will. How I wish I never had. May I continue? Another glance, another sting across the cheek. I blot the blood with my sleeve and nod. I almost had it. The skull was in my hand. The swan thrashed, furious, bucking and honking, ululating a dozen death spells that turned our thoughts to water and tears to acid. I would have succeeded despite the bird's histrionics had the algae-brained fowl not allowed a soul to escape. One became two, two became many, and I still clung to the serpent-weaving neck, determined to wrench my prize from its head. Their laughter is the snap of wild lightning, the seismic judder of a quake. I jerk, hand pressing to my ribs, fractured by their amusement. I could ask them to stop, forfeit this meal, accept starvation, but I'd only be trading one pain for another, and this will bring me closer to deliverance. By the time I understood Rupee's screaming, it was too late, the god says. With a particularly savage twist of its neck, the swan flung me to the shore. Souls streaked past me, fleeing toward life, Battered and soaked in viscera, I hauled myself to my feet. Incensed I'd have to forfeit, I rose, only to meet the tip of another aunt's spear. The image in the flames warped, heat weaving a different picture, and I choke back my rising gorge. Aunt Kalma is a lot like our mother, only worse. Tasked with protecting Tuanelda's borders and destroying any who attempt to escape, she's as hard as the onyx blade she carries, as keen as the spear tip she held at my throat. They press a hand to their neck, and the shadows curl beneath their ear like the hangman's rope. Surma, her dog-shaped pet the size of a bear, mauled the unlucky souls bolting from the river. It left nothing of them, not even their memories, chewing up their lives and spitting out the grizzle. All they had been vanished in that relentless maw. For several moments, the god stares into the flames, and the cuts on my face scab as I watch the small figure raise hands made of cinders. We're close to the end now. I can feel it, my veins swollen with the god's guilt. Inside, thickening into shame that's not my own. Rupi came to my defense, but I wasn't sorry, and I didn't want him putting apologies on my tongue or making excuses. I shoved him away and stared at Kalma. What was she going to do, run me through? She couldn't kill me. A pause, a breath. I am chaos, they say, and it is a molten rupture of earth, the vortex swirl of the cosmos, the vacuous swallow in the wake of dying stars. The god's name twists a hook inside me, their story finding purchase between my organs. I release my tangled breath, relief and resignation. It will be over soon. She said my name as if it tasted more foul than the string of intestines caught between her cavity-riddled teeth. Her tongue cratered with frostbite. Her skin cackled with the scuttle and thrum of carrion insects, and abruptly the god pauses and turns to the shadows. I am not exaggerating. Would you prefer to tell this story? They snarl, thin lips pulled cadaver tight. You weren't even there yet. How would you know? The god completes their admonishment, and the shadows settle once more, a mantle across their shoulders. Kalma gestured to the tumult our game had caused as both dog monster and swan beast attempted to catch the souls trying to tear their way free. You will be punished. Her words sunk through my skin and weighed down my bones, each syllable an anvil. With a look, she drove me to my knees, her spear still aimed at the soft depression of my throat. The shadows condense between the god's clavicles. My own hand rises to the same spot, pressing hard until I wince, the pain a reminder that I live, still, despite the life I stole. Perhaps I should have been more wary of a daughter of death. She drew back her spear and raised my head. Again the god snaps at the shadow. I think the word you're looking for is defiant. A rasp like serpent scales. Just shadow laughter. I caught the spear and snapped the tip clean off the shaft. The words ring hollow in my ear, turn to mist as I sputter, the shape of the tail distorting with the god's lie. Is that so? I ask, gently cajoling. I need the truth. I threw the broken ends of the weapon at her feet and sauntered out of Tuanella. Ha! Just like that, they say, repeating the last part as if saying so could make it true. Their injured hand trembles as the flames singe a different tale across the air. You made a vow. I gesture to the marks on their palm. It won't work unless you're honest. You came to my fire. All growl and bluster. The god's gaze gouges my face, but I stare back with temerity of the damned. And you accepted my services. You need my tail, and you want absolution. I know what you must have done to deserve this. Each drowning soul recognizes the other in the whirlpool. I quote from the scripture used to snare me in the prison of my flesh, my affliction the sentence I deserve, the one I beg the priestess to bestow. We are the same, this god and I, each holding the other in a hand that could soothe or become a crushing fist. Silence between us, Moments stretch taut, time elastic as the god stares unblinking at the cinders, as stars whirl and die and moons fracture above us. My sinews strain, blood bubbling. I dab at my nose and ears, close my eyes against the pressure, breath fettered in my lungs like cobweb, like ghosts, like remorse. Finally the god relents, so lie might become truth. Chaos speaks. Even now, all these centuries later, I hear it, as if he were right beside me. The flames paint the scene of snapping cartilage, crushing bones, seared flesh. I taste his fear. Our sibling connection, a screaming umbilical, I feel. The god gasps, and the shadows slip into their hair, coil tighter about their throat. I feel that squeeze, that throttle, my own desperate fingers on another neck. Watch then, Storyeater, and know the tale you want so badly. We both wanted this, needed this, but I let them keep their pride. My eyes are seared by the image of the smaller figure shoved aside by a larger Koma, who releases her throw, the spear plunging into a face. No anger shuddered through my mind, no hatred suffused his thoughts. All I felt, a tear carves a rill down the god's face and lands with a sizzle upon the dirt. Our aunt's spear is no mundane weapon, they say. One nick of the blade and you can be unmade, in eternal and inexorable decomposition. My vision blurs with the memories seeping from the heart they have laid bare before me. I could kick sand across its ragged edges and try to staunch the bleed, but that is not my purpose. Instead, I bring my blade to my palm and open the oldest scar. The one the priestess gifted me. It's time. Chaos leans forward as I reach a gentle hand towards the damage, letting my hurt mingle with theirs. Slowly I set about my harvest, tenderly peeling away the layers of false from true, spinning their yarn into my own tapestry. The screams of their brother, so like the cries of my son, relentless, incessant, both cut to sudden silence. Chaos, a god suffering hubris. Me, weak and sleep-deprived, both to blame for an accidental demise. I see their moment of shame. Can they see mine? Rupee's flesh fell like dried petals from his body. Chaos could do nothing but bear witness as their brother became beetle fodder. The swan ate his remains, his head sprouting from the bird's back, jaw wrenched open in contorted rictus. The tiny skulls upon the swan's head, which did I set in its crown? I remember what she said to me. The god's words ooze, slow and thick. It should have been you. The words slip between my teeth as I taste what they cannot forget, letting their tails slither through my skin. Better, perhaps, to let you see your brother suffer, knowing he suffers in your place. As I now suffer for a lifetime, 2, 3, for the infant one I stole. I'll never forgive Rupee for what he did that day, Chaos says, voice as empty as shed snakeskin. He loved you. The words linger between us, before the flames leap to incinerate them. I bite my tongue to keep from screaming as the god's anger whips strips of flesh from my exposed arms. I clench my fists, fingers curled protectively over the story winnowing deeper. He did what he did out of love. And for this love, my mother flayed me. He was her favorite. Her power ended at the border of Pajola. She couldn't save him. Her parents indifferent to her pleas, so she set her wrath upon me. Over and over again she broke me. Their voice cracks, and a tree splits, bark blackening and sloughing away. She let me heal, only to tear me asunder once more. Roots wrench from the earth, branches reducing to kindling. And then they choke as a ring of darkness closes their throat. Exile, I say. A harsh punishment. Undeserved, I think, for a child's prank gone awry. I've met the discarded and unwanted. The road is pitted with such flotsam, each floundering and wrestling the story caged within. How many I have freed and set upon a new trajectory? How many more must I endure? Will it ever be enough? It will never be. The priestess, her words a faint echo across the eons as she closed her spell and stitched a new fate on my soul. You are bound to the search, she said, until you are able to forgive yourself. Exile, Chaos echoes. Driven from the family that never wanted me, spurned, detested, forgotten. Not by Rupi, I say. The brother still swaddled in swan flesh. You still have time. Like you, time is all I have. They move, and I will myself not to recoil as they close the distance between us. Their scent is sulphur, sweet decay, the scorched metal of a forge. They cut my face and smooth the strand of hair from my blistered forehead. They keep their lambent gaze shuttered behind long lashes, squinting lest their power lacerate too deep, and loose the collection simmering in my skin. The newest acquisitions are still restless, not yet written in bone or mired in marrow. Is it always like this? They ask. It can be. I lean into the god's touch. A harsh punishment indeed. They have no need to ask what I did. Well deserved. Their thumb wipes away all further explanation from my lips. Is it done then? They ask. I open my scabbed palm, and they trace the story minnows skimming just below the surface as they search for sanctuary from hand to wrist to elbow, their razor fins breaking the surface of my skin as they write the god's truth. I'm sorry. Chaos places a moth-wing kiss on weeping flesh. With unexpected tenderness, they seal the injuries they inflicted upon me. Thank you, they say, then return to their side of the fire, and I feel their retreat like a scab picked too soon. The shadows welcome the god back with an oily embrace, and a jolt of envy turns my stomach. I only did as we agreed, I say. My innards full, my hunger sated for now. Was it worth it? Chaos asks. We are all what we're made to be. I suppress the wriggling resentment buried deep beneath layers subsumed from others. My own tale a briar tangle, a bezoar of the heart. My brother loved me, Chaos says. He may love you still. My words tumble and bounce across the span between us, a festering wound no longer, but a rift. Healing. My part is complete. What comes in the wake of catharsis isn't up to me. Yes, he may. The shadows flood behind their eyes, tendrils splaying across their face and trailing roots beneath the collar of their tunic as they pour between the god's lips. Chaos swallows. Guilt, fear, resentment. The shadows leave stains like bruises on their face. The god's way is clear now. They bow and raise 2 fingers to their lips, then pull them away in an offering of silent gratitude. I accept, tapping 2 fingers to my chest where the story gnashes beneath my breastbone. Eventually, it too will find its place and settle its feathers to join the myriad others at roost. Chaos leaves me as night gives way to pre-dawn gray. Light spills shy across the horizon as I stamp out the embers and gather my belongings. Already I sense the familiar hum of a fresh tale in need of release, drawing me back upon the road. That rutted track I can only trust will one day lead to my own salvation. Thank you, Xan, for that immersive and captivating story. I'm always a sucker for any story about the power of storytelling, and when mixed with dark, obscure folklore, you really cannot go wrong. In this story, we have a powerful blend of familial dysfunction, cosmic consequences, and interwoven metaphor that all serves to weave a truly dark and fascinating tale. The way the stories are literally woven into the bones and blood of our Storyeater serve not only to darken the narrative, but also to speak to the way stories impact, enrich, shape, and redirect all our lives each time we come across some tale truly memorable. I hope this story was as memorable to you listeners as it was to me. If that was the case, you'll be pleased to know that Xan intends to expand this idea into a full-length novel, and that they are well along on their journey to do just that. You can learn more about the forthcoming story and Xan's other work in just a few moments, as we have the privilege of bringing you an exclusive interview with this story's author right after this message. To all you listeners, thank you so much for being here. As always, I've been Clay Vermolum, your host. This has been Sinister Soup, an imprint of Grendel Press, and a podcast for lovers of everything dark and delicious. And until next time, we'll see you on the other side.